This is time that we discuss Lytton Strachey. Strachey was born in 1880 and he died in 1932. And he was one of the members who founded the Bloomsbury Group. And we come to find that there are the popular Bloomsbury Group members like Virginia Woolf, John Maynard Keynes, and E.M. Foster, Clive Bell, Vanessa Bell, Roger Fry, Duncan Grant, and McCarthy, and Leonard Woolf. And these were the members of the Bloomsbury Group. Actually, the people belonged to a place called Bloomsbury, and they became friends at the university, and they formed a group called the Bloomsbury Group. And the members of the Bloomsbury Group actually belonged to a place called Bloomsbury. And the major contributors of the Bloomsbury Group are Virginia Woolf and her husband Leonard Woolf. And then there is Vanessa Bell, the sister of Virginia, and her husband, Clive Bell. And then there are the other writers like E.M. Foster, and there was also the economist John Maynard Keynes, and there was also an artist named Roger Fry, and a painter named Duncan Grant, and there is also Lytton Strachey along with these people. And Lytton Strachey was a founding member of the Bloomsbury Group. And he had produced a very famous book called Eminent Victorians. And whenever we remember Lytton Strachey, we remember his book called Eminent Victorians. And there are 4 leading figures introduced in the Eminent Victorians. And the important people introduced in the Victorians, Eminent Victorians, are Cardinal Manning, Florence Nightingale, Thomas Arnold, and General Gordon. And once you see asked this question and asked to identify who is not included in the Eminent Victorians. And the Eminent Victorians was a book produced by Lytton Strachey in 1918. And there we come to find the biography of 4 people. And they are Cardinal Manning, Florence Nightingale, Thomas Arnold, and General Gordon. And Cardinal Manning was the Archbishop of Westminster Abbey. He was an Archbishop, Cardinal Manning. And Florence Nightingale, we all know, the founder of modern nursing, the lady with the lamp. It's very popular. And she was the founder of modern nursing. And the 3rd person included in the Eminent Victorians was Thomas Arnold, was the father of Matthew Arnold, the one who started the Rugby Public School. And another important Victorian was General Gordon, the British Army officer. And these 4 people are included in the popular book called Eminent Victorians. Their biographies are included in the collection called Eminent Victorians. And he is credited for introducing a new form of biography. And in the biography produced by him, there is psychological insight and sympathy combined with reverence and wit. So there is a very respectful description and wit. And there is also psychological insight and sympathy towards the person discussed. And at Trinity College, Cambridge, Strachey founded the Midnight Society. And there were his friends like Clive Bell, Leonard Woolf, and others. They started a movement called the Midnight Society. And in the opinion of Clive Bell, it was the source of Bloomsbury Group. And before the Bloomsbury Group, they started a Midnight Society. And the Midnight Society included people like Lytton Strachey, Clive Bell, and Leonard Woolf. And later Virginia and the others also joined the club, and they came to be called the Bloomsbury Group of Writers. And in India, we have got a Bloomsbury member, and it is Mulkraj Anand. So it was at the time Mulkraj Anand was also a student in the Cambridge University, studying at Trinity College. And he came into friendship with the Bloomsbury group members. And he was a friend in the Bloomsbury group, and he became an observer of the Bloomsbury group. And so he had written a book also, his reflections on the Bloomsbury group of writers. Mulkaraj Anand was also associated with the Bloomsbury group of writers. One of the very important points that we have to remember. And it was at the time Mulkaraj Anand was also there studying at the Trinity College, Cambridge. And he became familiar with the people of the Bloomsbury group. And he was always a silent observer in the group meeting there. And he was very close with Virginia Woolf and Leonard Woolf and Clive Bell and Vanessa and the economist John Maynard Keynes and the painter Duncan Grant. And on Duncan Grant, Virginia had produced a biography also. She had produced a biography of Duncan Grant. And these are the members of the Bloomsbury group, and Lytton Strachey was one of the prominent members there. And Virginia Woolf immortalized him in a novel. So in her novel called The Waves, he is introduced there as Neville. In the novel called The Waves, Strachey is introduced as Neville. And in her novel, The Voyage Out, Strachey is introduced as Sir John Hurst. And in two novels of Virginia Woolf, Strachey has been introduced. Strachey is a character in two of her novels. Virginia was a very close friend of Lytton Strachey. And it is said that Lytton Strachey and Virginia went for a skinny bath also. And Virginia was a favorite of Lytton Strachey, and they were also lovers for some time. And they went for skinny bathing in the night. And so Lytton Strachey is introduced in two novels written by Virginia Woolf. Say in the novel called The Waves, we come to find a character called Neville. So Waves is a modernist novel produced by Virginia. And in The Waves, we come to find, so there are a few literary masters introduced as characters. So in The Waves, there is a character called Bernard, and Bernard is E.M. Forster. And there is another character called Louis. Louis is C.S. Eliot. And there is a man named Neville. Neville is Lytton Strachey. And then there is Ginny. Ginny is a lady named Mary Hutchinson. And there is also Susan. Susan is Vanessa Bell. And Virginia herself comes in the novel as Rhoda. And they are found speaking about a person named Percival. And Percival is the one person who becomes dead midway in the novel. And these people are found speaking about Percival. And Percival was actually the brother of Virginia, named Toby Stephen. And Virginia's father was Leslie Stephen, and brother was called Toby Stephen. And these people are found speaking about Percival. So there are 6 characters. Bernard is E.M. Forster. And then Susan is Vanessa Bell. And Rhoda Virginia Woolf. And Neville Lytton Strachey. And Ginny Mary Hutchinson. And then Louis T.S. Eliot. And these people are found speaking about another person named Percival, who became dead. And the novel introduces the 6 characters speaking about Percival. Percival is not directly introduced in the novel. And it was written as an experimental novel by Virginia Woolf in 1931. And in the novel, Lytton Strachey is introduced as Neville, a writer and looking for reputation in a philosophic and transcendental manner. Neville is a writer looking for reputation in a philosophic and transcendental manner. And in another novel written by her called Voyage Out. Voyage Out was the first novel produced by Virginia Woolf. And in the novel Voyage Wolf, we come to find a young lady falling in love with a man. And after all, they make a tour, and on the way they become so in love. And there is a friend to the young man, and he is named Sir John Hurst. So a young man falls in love with a lady, and after all, and the girl is named Rachel, and Rachel falls in love with a young man, and after all, he has got a friend named Sir John Hurst. And the main character, the lady, becomes dead at the end. And we come to find that so the character of Lytton Strachey is introduced there as Sir John, Saint John Hurst. And Lytton Strachey is introduced in another novel written by Lewis, The Apes of God, Wyndham Lewis. And in Wyndham Lewis's novel, The Apes of God, Strachey is again introduced. And Strachey has been made an immortal character in many literary works. For example, Virginia Woolf introduced him in two novels. In the novel Waves, he is introduced as Neville. And in the novel The Voyage Out, he is introduced as Saint John Hurst. And Wyndham Lewis also produced the Lytton Strachey in his novel The Apes of God. And there he is introduced as Matthew Plunkett. And Lytton Strachey mainly popular for his biography called Eminent Victorians. He produced the biography of 4 people. And very interestingly, Lytton Strachey also used a pseudonym. While writing essays in magazines like Spectator, so he produced a pen name also. He used a pen name. It was Ignotus. Remember, it's a very important UGC point. The pseudonym adopted by Lytton Strachey was Ignotus. Ignotus, Ignotus. And he used the pen name while writing his essays in the popular magazines. Say from 1904 to 1914, he contributed a book and theatre reviews in a magazine called Spectator, and he used a pseudonym Ignotus. And remember, Lytton Strachey used the pseudonym Ignotus. And his first great success was the Eminent Victorians. And always remember, the Eminent Victorians included in the collection of biography are Cardinal Manning, Florence Nightingale, Thomas Arnold, and General Gordon. And you see also asked a question from this area. Identify who is not included in the Eminent Victorians. So in the Eminent Victorians, we come to find the 4 people: Cardinal Manning, Florence Nightingale, Thomas Arnold, and General Gordon. And at a later stage, Lytton Strachey produced one more biography. So he produced a biography of 4 people and included in the collection called the Eminent Victorians. And the people included in the Eminent Victorians are Cardinal Manning, Florence Nightingale, Thomas Arnold, and General Gordon. And later he included one more biography, and it was the biography of the great Queen Victoria. And he produced the biography of Queen Victoria in 1921 and included her biography also in the Eminent Victorians. Eminent Victorians was produced in the year 1918. And there are 4 great Victorians included in the biography collection. And in 1921, Lytton Strachey produced one more biography, and it was the biography of Queen Victoria. And later he included this biography also in the collection called Eminent Victorians. And Lytton Strachey was also a member of the Bloomsbury group. And while writing essays, he adopted a pen name called Ignotus. And he has been immortalized in the novels of Virginia Woolf. In the novel The Waves, he is introduced as Neville. And in the novel Voyage Out, he is introduced as Saint John Kirchka. And Wyndham Lewis also produced him as Matthew Plunkett in his novel, The Apes of God. And these are the things we learn from Lytton Stratchey. Thank you for time here.